right, this is Honors Algebra 2 Pre-Calculus. We're doing 10.7 in Pre-Calc, which is polar coordinates. So in example 2, we're going to convert the polar coordinates to rectangular coordinates. So the formula that we're using here for all of these, right, I'm just going to jot it down off to the side, right, is that x is r cosine theta and y is r sine theta, right? So that's really what we're going to do over and over and over again in the case of all three of these problems. So again, my r is the first coordinate in polar coordinates. My theta is the second one, right? So in A, right, my x is going to be 2 cosine of pi over 6, and my y is going to be 2 sine of pi over 6. Now, this does require that you know some unit circle stuff, right? So that's going to be 2 times a root 3 over 2, which means my x coordinate is root 3. And it's going to be a 2 times a 1/2, which means my y coordinate is a 1. So my answer in A is going to be root 3, comma 1. For B, my x is going to be negative 5 cosine of 7 pi over 4. My y is going to be negative 5 sine of 7 pi over 4. Right, now 7 pi over 4, if you recall, is the 45-degree angle, or the pi over 4 angle in quadrant 4, right? So it's going to have root 2 over 2 for both coordinates. It's just a matter of which sign, right? So the x coordinate will be positive, like the x on the unit circle will be positive. It's going to net a negative because we're walking backwards, right? So negative 5 times a positive root 2 over 2 is going to give me a negative 5 root 2 over 2 for my x coordinate. And my y coordinate is going to be a negative 5 times a negative root 2 over 2, which is going to net a positive 5 root 2 over 2. So my answer in B, and I kind of ran out of space a little bit, but my answer in B is negative 5 root 2 over 2, comma, regular 5 root 2 over 2. There we go. All right. Last one for C, I have 3 comma pi. Honestly, you could just intuit this one. If you wanted to just figure out that, hey, pi is definitely the negative x-axis and I'm walking 3 units, if you were able to logically figure out that this is negative 3 comma 0, that's fine, right? If you're not able to figure that out, you would figure it out by doing x is 3 cosine of pi, y is 3 sine of pi. Well, that's a 3 times a negative 1 for my x-coordinate, which is how I got a negative 3. And that's a 3 times a 0 for my y-coordinate, which is how I got a 0. So again, the answer for C would be a negative 3 comma 0, but I would argue that especially with that one, you could probably intuit the answer without doing all of the calculation.